I was 10 years old the day I learned that hunger can make people invisible. Not because they disappear, but because everyone else stops seeing them. My name is Daniel. I grew up in a forgotten village where even the roads seemed too tired to continue. Our house wasn't really a house. It was 4 cracked walls with a roof that leaked every time it rained. My father had died in a factory accident when I was 6. My mother washed clothes for wealthy families from sunrise until long after sunset. Some nights she came home so exhausted that she fell asleep before eating. When that happened, I quietly placed my own bread beside her pillow. Then I drank water and pretended my stomach wasn't screaming. I became very good at pretending. Pretending I wasn't hungry. Pretending my shoes didn't have holes. Pretending it didn't hurt when classmates laughed because my uniform had been stitched together so many times that it looked like a patchwork blanket. One cold winter morning, Mother handed me the last piece of bread in the house. "Eat this at school," she whispered. I already ate. I looked into her eyes. She was lying. I could always tell. But I nodded anyway. Sometimes love means accepting a lie that was told only to protect you. I wrapped the bread carefully inside an old cloth and started walking to school. Halfway there, I noticed an old man sitting beside the road. His beard was white. His clothes were torn. His hands trembled from the cold. Most people walked around him without looking. A few children laughed. One man muttered, "Lazy beggar." The old man didn't ask anyone for money. He didn't even raise his head. He simply stared at the ground, as if he had forgotten what hope looked like. I stopped. I looked at the bread in my hand. Then at him. Then back at the bread. My stomach growled so loudly that I almost laughed. I hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. I knew if I gave away that bread, there would be nothing until dinner. Maybe not even dinner. The old man slowly looked up. Our eyes met. He smiled. Not the smile of someone asking for help. The smile of someone embarrassed to exist. Without saying a word, I walked over and placed the bread into his hands. He looked shocked. "You need this more than I do," he whispered. I shook my head. My mother says kindness always comes back. He stared at me for several seconds. Then he gently held my hand. His voice was quiet, but every word stayed with me forever. One day, son, when life becomes heavy, remember this morning. I smiled. Then I ran to school. Before I changed my mind, that afternoon, I fainted during class. The teacher thought I was sick. I never told anyone I hadn't eaten. That evening, Mother somehow managed to bring home a little rice from one of the families she worked for. We survived, like we always did. The next morning, the old man was gone. No one knew where he went. Life moved on. Years passed. I finished school by studying under streetlights because we couldn't afford electricity every night. I worked construction after classes, delivered newspapers before sunrise, carried groceries for strangers, anything that helped Mother pay the bills. Eventually, I earned a scholarship. It wasn't enough to make life easy, but it was enough to keep hope alive. I became a teacher, not because it paid well, because I remembered exactly how it felt to be the child everyone overlooked. I wanted no student to ever feel invisible again. I married a wonderful woman named Sarah. Together we had a son, Ethan. He was everything good in my life. Curious, funny, always asking impossible questions. Dad, if birds don't pay rent, why do they get the best houses? He made us laugh every single day. For 12 beautiful years, life felt almost fair. Then, everything changed. Ethan collapsed during a football game. At first, we thought it was dehydration. The doctors ran tests, more tests, then one final test. I will never forget the doctor's face. Parents learn to read expressions before words. He closed the door gently, sat down, and said, "Your son has a rare heart condition." Everything after that sounded distant, like hearing someone speak underwater. He needed surgery, complicated surgery, urgently. The cost was far beyond anything we could ever afford. Insurance covered only a fraction. I sold my car, Sarah sold her jewelry, friends organized fundraisers, former students donated. Every dollar mattered. Still, we were painfully short. Each night, Ethan smiled at us from his hospital bed. "You'll fix me, Dad." I always answered the same way. "Of course." Then I cried in the hospital bathroom where he couldn't hear me. One afternoon, a nurse walked into the room. "There's someone asking for you." "I don't know anyone here." "He says he'll wait." Outside, an elderly man stood beside the window. Perfect suit, silver hair, elegant cane, expensive watch. But it wasn't the suit I noticed. It was his eyes. Warm, gentle, familiar. He smiled. "Do you still believe kindness comes back?" I froze. No, it couldn't be. Then, suddenly, I remembered. The road, the winter morning, the bread, the trembling hands, the old man. He nodded. "I've been looking for you." My voice shook. "How?" He laughed softly. "I never forgot your face." He explained everything. Years ago, he hadn't actually been homeless. He had once owned several successful companies. Then betrayal by business partners destroyed everything. He lost his money, his reputation, his family left. He wandered for months, believing life was over. The morning I gave him my bread, he had decided it would be his last day alive. He intended to end everything before sunset. Then a starving little boy shared the only food he had, without asking for anything in return. That single act forced him to question everything. If a hungry child still believed people were worth helping, he said quietly, maybe the world wasn't as empty as I thought. He started over, one step at a time. Small jobs, small investments, years of rebuilding. Eventually, he became successful again. Very successful. But he never forgot the little boy. He hired investigators, visited schools, checked old records. For years, nothing. Then he found an article online. Local teacher wins national award for helping poor students. There was my photograph. He smiled. I finally found you. I couldn't speak. He reached into his pocket, placed an envelope in my hand. Inside was confirmation that Ethan's surgery had been fully paid. Every expense. Hospital, doctors, recovery, everything. I stared at him. No, I can't accept this. He gently closed my hand around the papers. You already did. 20 years ago. I broke down crying. Right there in the hospital hallway. People walked past us. No one knew what they were witnessing. An act of kindness. Returning home. 20 years later. Ethan's surgery was successful. Months of recovery followed. Slowly, he became himself again. One afternoon he asked me, Dad, why does that old man visit me every week? I smiled. Because once, I shared my lunch. Ethan looked confused. That's all. I nodded. Sometimes, the smallest thing becomes the biggest thing in someone else's life. Years later, when Ethan graduated from university, the old man sat proudly in the front row. He cried louder than anyone else. A few months afterward, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. He left behind enormous wealth, large companies, properties, investments. But in his will, there was something unexpected. He created a foundation. Its mission was simple. No child should ever go hungry because kindness once saved my life. The foundation carried my mother's favorite saying, kindness always comes back. Today, thousands of children receive meals every single day because one hungry boy once shared half a loaf of bread. Sometimes reporters ask me, what was the greatest investment ever made? I always answer the same way. It wasn't money. It was a piece of bread. People usually smile politely. They think I'm speaking in metaphors. I'm not. Because I know something life taught me personally. Kindness doesn't disappear. It travels. Sometimes quietly. Sometimes for decades. Sometimes across generations. But eventually, it finds its way home. So if you're listening to my story today, and life has made you believe that your small acts don't matter, remember this. A smile, a meal, a helping hand, a kind word. You may forget it tomorrow,